Welcome to Tectonic Takes, everybody. My name is Favi and Ivan. I'm here with your co-host, Ivan, as well. And then we have a special guest today. Very special guest in the realm of Quakes news and Quakes media and Quakes blogs, really. Dan, Quakes fan, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, by the way. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, this is Dan from Goonie Time Radio. If you ever heard of that podcast, very famous podcast. Him and Mrs. Quakes fan, they run a great show over there.
I got a story if you want to hear that, by the way.
Let's do it.
Go for it.
Up in Roseville, my parents were living up there, and we're at the Topgolf, and I'm wearing my Quakes attire and things like that, and we're hitting balls, and guys like, "Hey, are you Earthquakes fan?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm an Earthquakes fan." He's like, "Oh yeah, do you listen to podcasts?" I'm like, "Yeah, I listen to podcasts."
What?
You ever listen to Goonie Time Radio? I'm like, "Yeah." Oh, you know Dan? Yeah, I am Dan. Oh. So I was like, hey, man, this actually is getting a little bit of traction with this podcast. So I thought that was kind of funny. All the way up in Roseville, of all places.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. Wow. Were you just on the highest of highs right there? You're like, yeah, I'm famous, dude.
Well, that's the funny thing is because we were telling my brother like not 10 minutes before about how we do this podcast. And, it's kind of a niche fan base, but, it's fun to talk about the Quakes and things like that. And then all of a sudden this guy sees me in like Earthquakes gear and he's like, hey, you're an Earthquakes? And kind of like strike up this conversation. My brother's listening to this whole thing. And then like he sees it all revealed in front of him. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious, do you remember if that was like before Sacramento Republic was in a club? Or?
No, this was during Sacramento Republic's.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Dan also runs QuakesFan.com. So if you've ever seen that around or if you've been on it, this is the man, the myth, and the legend right now. So we are featured on his blog as well. So we're very thankful. Thank you, Dan, for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm always, if there's anybody who's out there who has any blogs or podcasts, I always try to promote the team. So as far as I know, I have blogs and podcasts. So if there's anybody out there that's working that I don't have represented, please just let me know. I'll put you up on my blog too.
All right. That's great. It's nice to see. And that's what we've been talking to Dom last week and now you, that this is a very collaborative community that while we take pride in our work and we do the best we can, we also, support others and give others a due. And that's really cool of you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is the dark times of the Quakes, right? We need to all band together and get through it.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen some pretty dismal seasons, and I think 2018 was bad, but I think this is going to be worse.
Yeah.
In terms of being a fan, 2013, it started off bad, but we ended well. You can't really, the early years, they're a new expansion team. You can't really have too much expectations, but this year had a lot of expectations, and yeah, to see where we're at now, it's a mourning process, but misery loves company, right? So we can all like commiserate together. So
Well, this is a safe place for us Quakes fans that are mourning, the team.
Right.
Yeah. I'm wearing my black jersey, by the way, just so.
Yeah. Well, in Dan's latest blog, he talks about kind of the Almeida quotes before the 2020 season and how confident that an unchanged group would succeed. Dan, you want to talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, so I think everyone's playing the blame game right now, right? Like, what's wrong with the team? Is it the coach? Is it the players? Is it the system? And so there's a lot of like finger pointing, and people are quick to blame Jesse Fiorinelli. They're quick to blame John Fisher. Not so quick to blame Matias Almeida.
Right.
And so, it's like, Almeida has a system, but he doesn't have his players. And I'm like, well, and he was kind of like coming to the media like that. Like, yeah, our players just aren't up to MLS caliber right now, for lack of kind of paraphrasing what he said. And I just remember like, well, you kind of implied that the team was ready back in the preseason, right? It's like, for me, we don't need to have a high turnover rate. In fact, the players know the system. We should be doing a lot better this year. So he made it sound like we didn't need a complete overhaul of the roster, when now it sounds like he's saying that we do. So I just kind of gathered some of his quotes and said, let's kind of look at the whole picture here. I'm not saying he's entirely to blame. I think blame goes all around, obviously. But I just wanted to draw attention to the fact that, Matias Almeida is saying things now that might not agree with what he was saying at the beginning of the year in terms of the roster and the player caliber.
Right. And he's flip-flopping. I mean, before he was saying everything that the owner wanted to hear, and now he's finally not. So it's kind of like a politician,
Yeah.
Well, he's on the hot seat, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. His recent press conferences compared to in the off season feels like a night and day contrast. It feels like we're talking about either two completely different teams, or these quotes are years apart rather than within the same past season.
Yeah, I mean, the critique is valid. I mean, unfortunately, he should have known he doesn't have the players. So why are you gonna try to run the system? And again, this season is an abnormality. So we can't really put it on him too hard. I don't know. I'm in between. I'm between both camps. What do you guys think?
So for me, I think there's a lot of issues. I think, and I kind of hinted at this before, Jesse Fiorinelli, he had one project going, and then he pivots with Matias Almeida to begin a new project. And he was using a lot of the old players from that old project to try and make a new system work. And it just didn't work for, a lot of reasons, I think, Fiorinelli's players, I don't think were as good as he thought they were going to be in MLS, with Vaco and some of the other players that he brought in before Matias Almeida that were now expected to run this new system. And I just see, one of the things Matias Almeida brought up is we're having to rely on a lot of our youth players and things like that. Well, Colorado, they put out a stat. The average age of their starting lineup was 23, something like that. So I'm like, well, if you're talking about youth versus youth, like Colorado put out a very youthful team as well, and they still steamed us 5-0. So I don't buy the argument that it's the players per se, that they're just not up to caliber or they're too young or something like that. I think there's a lot going on.
Right. This will be a theme, not just in this individual podcast, but throughout these next several weeks, because Quakes fans are all over the board with on the scale of hashtag Almeida out, or on the other end of the spectrum, Almeida can do no wrong. And neither of those are necessarily true. The truth lies somewhere in the middle. And even though I'm a bit more lenient towards Almeida because the Liga MX club I support is Guadalajara, so I've seen him succeed there. I can't turn a blind eye on some of the decisions that he's made. And the ones that you pointed out and have been baffling to me as well, the constant selection of Andy Rios and Daniel Vega over Chris Wondolowski and JT Marcinkowski. And especially in this period where almost every other position is seeing regular rotation, but Andy Rios keeps drawing starts, and Vega has started all but one game this season.
Yeah.
Yeah, who doesn't succeed with the pocketbook of Guadalajara, though? I mean, let's be honest. Buy any player.
Small talent pool, but still.
That's another thing I think that we need to draw attention to is when Matias Almeida comes in, he's expecting the team to spend, right?
Right.
And they kind of say that again.
I don't know how. Sorry to cut you off, Dan. I don't know how that doesn't come up in his scouting of the team or in the conversation when he took the job. Like, how does that not come up? How do you say, okay, how much money do I have to play with? It's kind of like asking, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like you got Almeida versus Fisher, and Almeida needs a better salary to be able to bring in players and be able to have the caliber players that he's advocating for. And you got an owner like Fisher who is notorious for pinching pennies and trying to make the most money. I mean, he's always been that way. So scouting should have been.
the craziest part about it was that we ran that whole ordeal that we got a team to find us our next coach, and we ran like a whole system after Stare that we're going to hire this group to find us a coach. And they must have done a great job kind of selling San Jose to Matias Almeida and whatever potential coaches we were going to get. But again, so how do you not know Fisher's going to be involved? I talked to Andres Imperiale, and I asked him, hey man, did you ever think like the Quakes like were cheap on the nutrition side, or did they feed you guys? Like, did you ever feel like there was something missing? And he said, no, on that side they were really good, but take this with a grain of salt. But Andres Imperiale only really saw him about 3 times the whole tenure he was there. So I don't think if you're that hands off with something, I mean, how can you expect it to run smoothly if you're that hands off with something? I mean, I guess you're just making money, right? You're making money and you don't really care about what the product is. And it just shows we're at that point again.
Right. As Phil put it on Quakes After 90, the Quakes fan base seems to be focused, if not fixated, on who to blame more. And this is reiterating what Dan and the rest of us are saying as well. And I just want to call to whoever is listening to this, as we continue to sift through the crap that is these last 8 results, including 4 big blowout losses, and try to rack our brains what went wrong. I don't mind playing the blame game, but the most important thing, rather than the who, is the why. Why are these people making these decisions rather than why are these people not good enough? So that's going to be something that we're going to try to focus on a bit more. But before we get into that, we do have a bit of a fun quiz to bring us back to the happier times.
Okay. Yeah. A trip down memory lane.
Yeah, so I call this Quakes Flashback. So I'm going to name a player, and they're either going to be on the 2012 roster, the one that won the Supporters' Shield, Goonie Time, and the one who just sneaked into the playoffs, but that feels like a great achievement compared to where we're at now in 2017. Some might be on both.
Yeah.
And maybe if I'm feeling a little evil, I might throw in one that wasn't in either, but we'll see.
Yeah.
So, Dan,
you got me beat on all right, I'm a Avaya baby, all right? I don't know anything about this.
So
I remember that 2012 season really well. That was an awesome season, the Buckshaw days.
So we'll play to 5 points for us to get 5 right, but we'll go even turns. So if someone gets to 5, the other person will get a chance to rebuttal. And we'll start with you, Dan, since you're our guest. Are you ready?
Sure. Yep.
All right. David Bingham.
Well, 2012, not 2016, 2017.
So David Bingham, he was on our roster in the 2012 season.
Wow, okay.
But he was also on 2017 with Matt Bersano and Andrew Tarbell. Okay. So unfortunately, you don't get a point there. Favi, you're
that was a hard. You know, I
thought after that, that national team call up, he was persona non grata at that point. But yeah, okay.
All right. So, Favi, we got Darwin Seren.
2017, easy.
That's correct.
The harder one.
Don't worry. You be careful what you wish for.
All right.
All right, Dan. Jamir Hika.
2017.
That is correct. All right, Favi. Victor Bernardez.
Both.
Victor Bernardez was on both. Actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
He came in 2012, right? That's what happened?
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because in the 2012 page for the Earthquakes roster, he's listed as that was yes, it's interesting. He's listed as Honduran in 2012, and then Bernardez has the American flag next to him for some reason in 2017. He got a green card,
right? He didn't.
That's why. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
currently, Favi. Go ahead, Dan.
I was going to say he played in the World Cup for Honduras in 2018.
2014.
or not 2018. I thought
no, it's 2014. Honduras didn't qualify in 2018.
Oh, I thought that was the one where the United States got out. Mexico and Costa Rica, and I thought it was Honduras was that third CONCACAF team. But
Honduras was in 2010 with USA and Mexico. It was just those three, and then 2014 it was those three plus Costa Rica because Mexico was the fourth place team in CONCACAF, and they knocked out New Zealand in Intercontinental.
Got it. Okay.
Man, dude, Ivan, you're on the ball. Jeez.
Yeah, I started watching soccer because of the World Cup, so I know a bit more World Cup trivia than I should.
CONCACAF podcast right here. Let's go.
All right, Dan. Your next player is Alan Gordon.
Definitely 2012, not 2017.
Yeah.
Correct. So tied 2-2 with Favi's third turn coming up.
No, this is his second turn. This is his third turn.
Yeah, third.
Okay, sorry.
No worries.
Favi, Simon Dawkins.
2017. Both.
I'll let that slide, Favi. But next time, the first one you say will be
all right.
Yes.
Second tenure,
Yeah, and this is another one where Simon Dawkins, he was listed as an English player in 2012, and then he started representing Jamaica in 2017.
Yeah.
So
yeah, which is funny. Yeah.
So did we only get Simon Dawkins out of that Tottenham Hotspurs partnership? Like, was it?
That was, in fact, that was a heavily touted deal where they're like, yeah, we're gonna have a partnership set up, and Dawkins came over, and that was the only player that came over from Tottenham.
They probably were like, we'll give him to you for free, but just put some advertising.
Well, that's the thing. Like, he came over and he was a stud, and they wanted like $1 million or some huge transfer fee or something like that, and
right.
I'm like, yeah, we can't really afford that. And then we never did another deal with Tottenham again.
Well,
yeah.
He had that great goal when we won against Toronto down, I think, 2 men. And then that was a great goal. And I always wondered, like, what happened? Like, why did he just fall off? I never understood.
Yeah, I know he went Aston Villa, I think. And then he went to like Derby County, and yeah, his career just progressed towards the lower leagues. I don't think he ever recovered.
Do you think it was like a confidence thing?
I probably a lack of playing, I think, because when he was on the bench at Tottenham, and if you're not getting the field time, your skills are not, being honed as much as they could be, and I think that really hurt his career.
Yeah, even at that time where Spurs weren't necessarily considered one of the big six yet in England, you had players like Giovanni Dos Santos who were not seeing any game time there. So it was pretty difficult even back then.
Yeah.
All right. Dan's turn, right?
Yep. Yes. All right. So your player is – sorry, I lost my place for a sec. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Here we go. Your player is Rafael Baca.
2012, not 2017.
That is correct.
Yeah, Baca. I wish we brought that guy back too. I mean, he's been such a good player in Liga MX. Like, it's funny how many former Quakes of that 2012 squad, 2013 squad just became studs
really?
After they left San Jose. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, Justin Morrow, Steven Beitashour. Right. Yeah, I mean, Rafa Baca, he was awesome. Yeah, just frustrating.
We just didn't want to sign these guys? I mean, we didn't want to pay their wages? Like, do you remember what happened?
There's always a salary issue from what I can remember. Like, it was, in fact, a lot of it was, like, it wasn't even, like, a lot of money. It was just, like, maybe, like, $1,000 or $2,000 between salary of one team and another. And
oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah, they're probably trying to save every dollar to penny pinch for that.
Yeah, I think they're trying to just get the most money out of their players and didn't want to have to pay a big salary. So
right.
Yep.
All right, Favi, your next player is Kari Stephenson.
Kari, I'm gonna say 2017.
Kari Stephenson was on the 2012 roster, but not 2017. Oh. So we're tied up at 3 apiece.
Okay.
All right. So next up we have Dan, and if you get this wrong, then Fabi has a chance to win it.
All right.
Tommy Thompson.
Tommy Thompson, homegrown. I want to say that was 2016, so he's on the 2017 roster, but not the 2012.
Correct. He made his senior debut for San Jose in 2014, so you're right.
Yeah.
All right, Fabi, this is your chance to tie it up.
Oh, gosh.
Aiko Para.
Oh, 2012.
All right,
Yeah.
4-4.
Okay.
So we'll do one more round, and then if you guys are still tied after that, I'll think of a tiebreaker.
Okay.
Sure.
Good. Sounds good.
Aiko Parra is another player that we had in 2012, and look at what he's done after, he was injured with Sporting Kansas City, but once he got over those injuries, he's been lights out.
He's even been a stud with Minnesota.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so imagine if we had Aiko Parra back there all these years. Oh,
I know. Yeah, I've been advocating Aiko Parra for the U.S. men's national team for a while. He's been Defender of the Year a couple times.
Yeah.
Like candidate or, up there, so, yeah.
All right, so I'm going to give you Sam Cronin, Dan.
Sam Cronin moved to Minnesota after the 2012. I think it was Colorado. So he's just 2012. I don't think he was 2017. Just 2012.
That's correct. All right, Fabi, and
All
then
right, here we go.
Your player, Kip Colby.
Oh, Kip Colby, 2017.
All right, so there's no fooling
pride of New Zealand.
Yeah, the New Zealand stud.
All right, so this is our tiebreaker. We're going to do hot potato on the 2017 roster of players that it could be even players that we've already named. So we'll take turns this time. Fabi, you'll start out, and then Dan, you'll go next. We'll keep going until one of you is silent for 5 seconds. Okay?
Sure.
Okay.
All right, ready, Fabi?
Yeah. So you're going to say a name and I say yes or no?
No, you just say a name that's on the 2017 roster. If you get it wrong or if you're silent for 5 seconds, then you lose. So this is sudden death.
Okay.
2017, not 2012.
Yeah, we're disregarding 2012 now.
Okay.
We're just doing 2017. All right? You guys both ready?
Ready.
All right. So go, Fabi.
Jimmy Hika.
All right. Go, Dan.
Wando.
All right.
Innocent Amagara.
Oh, I'm sorry. Innocent Amagara was not on the 2017 roster, so Dan wins.
I'll take it. I was going to say Shea Salinas for the win, but
yeah, I was trying to go like some hard ones first, and then the easier ones later.
I was going to go through goalkeepers. I'm like.
I'll go through some of the hard ones real quick that you could have answered. Kofi Sarkodie.
Oh, I thought
Francois Afalter.
Yeah.
Let's see. Cordell Cato.
Floor Youngberg.
He just had one appearance, but Lindo Mfeka.
Harold Cummings should be on there.
Harold Cummings.
Tarbell, I think, should be on there.
The Panamanians.
Yeah, Darwin Quintero. Yeah.
Mark Pelosi, Mateo Silva, and Quincy Amarikwa.
Oh, Quincy. No JJ Koval on that list?
Oh, yeah.
No JJ Koval on the 2017.
Okay. Okay.
All right, then. So that'll conclude this quiz segment. And now we'll go into the first game, the September 19th matchup, where the San Jose Earthquakes played Portland Timbers in the second time in a 3-day span. And to put it lightly, it did not go the same way.
Yeah, definitely. It was a tough game. Again, these are all going to be tough games. It's kind of like we don't really want to talk about them, but we're going to have to go through it. So, looks like the 6 changes from the 1-1 draw. It was Vega, Lima, Judson, Beatson, Lopez, and Youngberth. I'm sorry, I'm saying the whole thing. The starting 11 was Vega, Lima, Judson, Beatson, Lopez, Youngberth, Fierro, Yul, Calvillo, Salinas, and Rios. And basically, we saw a couple of guys that we didn't get to see. Yeah,
of the 6 changes that didn't start in this game that started in the first Portland game, I think 4 of them should have probably started, but I understand it's tough with the short time span. Ideally, you would have liked to see Marcinkowski, Alanis, Espinoza, and Vaco. I probably would have left Marie and Akanya Rije on the bench for this one, but
I want
Yeah.
to say Alanis was injured too. Wasn't he injured?
Oh,
Yeah, as well.
that's
so
true.
He was so he couldn't start that second game.
Oh, okay, right then. So those were the most baffling parts for me because Espinoza and Vaco, they provide a lot of the potential creativity on this rosters. So when you're starting Fierro, Salinas, and Rios as essentially your front three, if we're going at a very generous 4-3-3, although it looks more like a 4-1-4-1 on the way the lineup is shown on MLS.com, it definitely was going to be a slow start offensively for the Quakes, but it turned out to be even worse defensively.
Yeah, I mean, for this game, not really a lot to kind of go over. Again, the man marking system's off. Once one player is off, then the whole thing crumbles. And that's kind of a theme that we're going to get the next couple of games as well. So we'll see if they can all get together. Dan, what did you think of the game?
I think we saw a lot of what the future might look like in terms of like Tanner Beeson. I don't think he is quite MLS quality. He's probably more of a USL player. I don't know if this is entirely player related as to why the 1-1 became a 6-1. A draw becomes like a huge blowout as opposed to, I mean, Espinoza that's criminal. You gotta have that guy in your starting 11.
Right.
He is just a dynamo for everything Quakes offense. Vaco, if he's playing at maybe like 95% of his effort level, he's usually pretty good. The problem is he's usually about a 60% effort per game, and he doesn't get back on defense. So I don't mind seeing Vaco not in there. Shea got really burned.
Yeah, Shea had a bad game, that's for sure.
Yeah, the thing I've noticed with the man marking, I mean, it's as strong as your weakest link, right? And what showed that to me the most is when Flo got beat by Jordan Morris in Seattle. Jordan Morris goes right around him and he starts dribbling the ball. Flo's running as fast as he can, and all the other players are sticking with their man in their man marking system. And so Jordan Morris has a one-on-one, and it's like, I mean, that's a problem with, as soon as one guy gets beat, then the whole chain kind of crumbles, So I think, we forget that Portland they were dealing with all the smoke. They didn't really prepare. I heard that they were playing 7v7s. They couldn't even field a full squad because it was so smoky up there.
Wow.
So I don't think they really prepared coming into San Jose for that first game, whereas the second game they were able to prepare more. Yeah. And then obviously, Diego, Chara, Yimi Chara, they just were.
Valeri had a great game.
Yeah. So I'll just run you through quickly the changes that Portland made. So you had Ivasic, who he's either second or third choice goalkeeper because I'm not sure quite where Jeff Attinella.
I think he's their third.
Yeah, I figured Jeff Attinella was either second or third. I was leaning second.
He had that David Bingham haircut going too.
Yeah. So other than that, like the changes that were made for players like Bonilla, Polo, Williamson, Mora, Yazgoda, and Yemi Chara, you still had a lineup of Loria, Diego Chara, Paredes, Konechny, Valerian, and Bobise. That doesn't look anywhere near the drop-off that when you rotate a San Jose Earthquakes team. And that's part of the problem. Unfortunately, this roster isn't built with the same amount of depth as the Cascadia teams, maybe barring Vancouver, but even then, like Vancouver has gotten a bit more deep. And definitely not the LA teams.
At least Vancouver has a striker, though. They have Freddie Matero.
Oh, yeah. It would be nice to have him on this team.
Nice.
I mean, why don't we trade within teams? That's another thing. Kai Kamara just got traded to Minnesota. We could have easily paid a little Garber bucks, but we didn't want to do it. So
I've only known Jesse Fiorinelli to make one trade within MLS, and that was it Darwin Quintero? Yeah, Darwin Soren, sorry.
Yeah.
I believe when he first got here. And that was for like money or something like that. And then if you want to count like Fatai Alashe and Anibal Godoy going to like, future, like we didn't get money, we didn't get players back. So
right.
It's frustrating to see a lack of moves within MLS.
Those transfers with Godoy and Alashe going through expansion drafts. Quakes better prepare for that as well, because you have Charlotte, St. Louis, Austin, and Sacramento getting ready to enter the league in the next few years. And granted, they're not doing themselves any favors so far with the roster building anyway, but still, it's something that other MLS clubs seem to be planning for a lot better. And I'll briefly go through the goal scoring summary if I can, because there were 7 goals. So it started with the Diego Valeri free kick, 25th minute. 2 minutes later, Ebobisis scored, made 2-0.
That's a set piece.
Yeah, that was
a problem.
Piece.
Yeah.
Is it because we're so short? You guys think that it's because we're short?
I think that's a big problem. Yeah, I think Jefferson Quintana was our biggest player, and granted, he wasn't the best defender, but he was a force in the box for those crosses and those set piece kind of corners or free kicks. And he was a guy that could get his head on the ball. I don't if you were Tanner Beeson, 0 aerials won in Colorado, I think.
Oh, wow.
And it's he's a center back. You can't be bossed around if you're a center back, and our center backs are just being bossed around all the time. So it's a major problem.
It's gonna be hard to find a center back that's fast and tall. That's
I mean, Flo's not even supposed to be center backs. Flo is a defensive mid who got conscripted to play center back, and he became our best center back. What does that tell you about our lack of depth at center back?
Yeah, Flo actually had some rave reviews from Andres Imperiale. He said Flo was the most technical player out there. So, I mean, I guess he kind of won that role and stick to it because he was good at it, at least there.
Yep. So the 2-1 scoreline came through the Carlos Fierro goal, his first goal for the San Jose Earthquakes. It was both Marcos Lopez and Eric Calvillo got credited with an assist there, which is great to see. Calvillo,
Fierro had a really good game. He had 5 shots, 3 on frame, played well. He was the only guy that was generating that game.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Shout out to Carlos Fierro. I mean, he had a miss in his second game, but he had a really good first game. So let's not throw him under the bus just yet, the same way we're doing to Andy Rios.
Right. Yeah. Valeri made it 3-1 at just after halftime in the 57th minute, and then from there it went downhill. Yemi Chara 70th minute, Julio Cascante 85th minute, and then Jaroslav Niezgoda to put the exclamation point on this if it hadn't already, to get the scoreline we have now, 6-1.
Yeah, I mean, open the floodgates, right? So once they're down by 2, they just let them in. I mean, they all start getting lazy on their man marking, and then they leave the goalie to dry, really.
And I mean, here's another thing with the man marking system. It takes a lot of energy, and you can play it for a half, but that second half, that's when the Quakes are surrendering goals. They've surrendered 4 goals in 3 of their last 7 games right now in that second half. Right. I think players are gassed, and I think the other team knows how to exploit that energy that's required of a man marking system in order to gas the team. And then when you come out for the second half, you really attack because, hey, these guys are tired. We're going to be able to get behind them. And I think that's what happened with Portland.
All right. And some of the stats from that game, the shot count was 18-11 in favor of Portland, shots on target 9-4 in favor of Portland. So Portland scored with 66.6 percent of their shots, which is scarily clinical, but it was deserved. Possession, I don't know how the Quakes keep winning these possession games. I guess they just do nothing with it when they have the ball, but 62% for the Quakes. Passing accuracy, 85% for Quakes, 74% for Portland. Portland leads chances created 3-2. Quakes had 6 corners to their 5. Both had 12 fouls. Another kind of issue, Quakes had 5 offsides. So for a team that's not creating a lot of opportunities and who doesn't threaten their opponents that much, and which is also a problem because they're up against an inexperienced goalkeeper, so they only put 1 past him is not good enough. You got to be onside, and that's a training thing. That's mental errors, and that's got to improve. And lastly, 2-1 Quakes with the yellow cards to Portland's 1. Go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
I was going to say, I think Andy Rios had 3 of those offside calls against him.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they're probably so tired, right? And they're just making mental lapses because they're getting frustrated. I guess offsides are a thing that's going to happen if you're tired. If you just not looking straight, you're not paying attention.
Yeah. And, like I said, once you're down, you're going to start pushing the attack a little bit more, which is going to set you up for that counterattack even,
Right.
It's going to be a lot more potent. So I think, it's almost adding fuel to the fire when you're trying to close that gap. And then you have a man marking system where, you can get behind our players pretty quickly on the counter. And then, so it's like a perfect storm.
My whole thing about the possession is they don't really pass the ball forward. A lot of it's going back to kind of pass it around, and unfortunately they're not quick enough to actually shift the defense at all. So it's like, okay, well, Baco has the ball. Okay, the ball goes to Marco Lopez. Okay, the ball now is going to Florian Jungwirth and then Tanner Beeson. Okay, now it's going to you. Now Tanner Beeson. It's like, oh man, you don't even hear any Rios get the ball once. I mean, Yule's so far back that no one's forward, and I don't know. I think it looks a lot like a near ball when they have the ball, and that's not good at all.
No, yeah, I was about to say that's Dom Kinnear ball right there, right? Yeah. Like send it to the back and then hope something happens.
Right.
Forward.
Someone flips on our bad pitch or something.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of the pitch, well, I mean, it's played well recently, but
I'm always wondering, how do we have such a bad pitch? And I guess a lot of it has to do with the irrigation. I read that the irrigation isn't set up for. They had to build the stadium higher, and then Fisher wanted to go ahead and cheap out, so he didn't build it higher, so that's why it breaks all the time. I think I heard that somewhere. I forgot. I'm sorry if if I'm breaking out someone's stuff and not giving them credit, but I was like, why is our pitch so bad all the time? I remember there was a couple of people saying our pitch is so bad, but it was because the rugby sevens was played on it, and it's still happening. So that was back when the stadium first was open. They were like, oh, they're practicing sevens out here, or they're having games of sevens, and the pitch is so bad because of it. But I mean, we're still seeing those problems now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So at the end of covering each game, we do our one stud, one dud segment that we borrowed from Quakes After 90.
Yeah.
I'll start things off. We already gave Fierro some praise, and Lopez has definitely gotten his dues. I do want to use this to give a bit of a spotlight to Eric Calvillo. He's one of the few, I say this for a couple players, so maybe there's more than a few bright spots, but this feels like a player that he's seeing his opportunities increase, and he's playing better with each game. And I am very proud to see him continue to hopefully move his way up in the depth chart. And if there's to be a roster blow up at some point in the near future, hopefully Calvillo is one that sticks around. And then my dad would be Shea Salinas. His handball turned into a penalty that started the snowball effect. And I feel like at this point of his career, he's got to be just a option off the bench. Even when he's being rotated in, it doesn't seem like he's a start and play 70 minutes type of player anymore. And it's another situation where, like, Wando has been completely boxed into the super sub role even when he's playing better than the starter. Salinas should still be that super sub.
Right, I agree. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dan. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, Shea Salinas. I'm gonna defend a little bit here. He had a really bad game. That was the first bad game I've seen him have in a couple of years as a starter. I'll say as a starter. Remember when the Quakes went on that tear in April, May, June, kind of July, where they're like, he was a regular starter, and then. It's when they took Shea out of the lineup. That's when they had that crash out of the 2019 playoff race, and Shea was getting assists. He was actually, generating opportunities. So I'm not defending his last game, which was really, a very bad, uncharacteristic Shea Salinas performance. I think that he's probably, he's an older player. He definitely can't go 90 anymore. I wouldn't mind seeing him off the bench. But I think it's a little. I want to say, one game shouldn't define Shea as a player going forward. I think
Yeah.
Yeah,
maybe I was a bit harsh. Sorry, go ahead, Favi.
No worries. And my stud was probably Fierro, and then my dud was Shea Salinas. Unfortunately, he had a bad game. Marcos Lopez was good as well, so give him a little praise as well.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that Marcos Lopez continues to have these bad score lines stamped on his CV, but he continues to get praise for his efforts. And, just because you're in a defense that concedes so much goals almost every game, it feels like, doesn't necessarily mean that every defender it should be treated equally in terms of the blame. But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully Marcos Lopez continues to offer something, and he's been pretty good on both ends of the field.
Well, a little bit of good news, he got called up to the Peruvian international squad. So that's huge. That's huge. He got on to the Peruvians national team squad.
Yeah, he's been a national team member for a while now. So
okay. So at least we know that his performances aren't ruining his national team.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it helps, playing left back. That's that's one of the few positions that we don't have a lot of left-footed players that want to play like a defensive role. So finding a good left back that's why DeMarcus Beasley, right? He's a U.S. men's national team member who was playing left back for 15 years or something, because nobody could find a replacement for him. Finally, I think DeAndre Yedlin is like, okay, I'll take over for you. But like that's a long career, because that's such that's a position that you don't have a lot of talent to out there to use. Yeah.
Right. So before we go into the Colorado game, we want to talk a little bit about your fan poll, Dan. You posted it on the Quakes subreddit. You created it, cataloged the results. You got 103 responses. So I feel like there's a reasonable-ish sample size to gauge the opinion. Yeah. And do you want to talk about some of the points that were most interesting for you?
Well, let's just go over the number of responses. 103. That's like 100 less than any other poll I've done before.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So normally it's in the 200s to 300s. So when you see only 100 responses, I think that goes to show that the fan base is disinterested in the team, and maybe they're you have loyal fans that are going to stick around till the bitter end and support the team no matter what, like what we're doing. But I think for the casual fan and things like that, it kind of goes to show that there's a lack of interest in San Jose Earthquake soccer right now as it pertains to the team and things like that. People just don't care because So I just want to put that out there as another statistic that the fan poll might be indicating, right? The lack of responses this time around.
That's crazy, because you would always do these on your podcast, and it always seemed like it was, I guess, darker days, but I guess there was a lot more fans then. So it's
there were.
It's crazy to think we have this, Ferrari type coach where we should get a lot of interest, and we, a brand new coach, and not brand new anymore, but he should have a lot of interest and a lot of fans coming in. But I feel like a lot of people have abandoned us. So Dan, go ahead and let's get into it.
All right. Well, Wando, I think we're all in agreement that he should be back, considering this season was such a wash, and we don't want to see him go out like that. I don't know. Are you guys in agreement with that one?
Yeah, I voted yes on this. I think he definitely should come back. And Bradley Wright Phillips is on tear right now. So that we need to score.
He had a hat trick. Yeah.
Yeah. So every day I'm worried more and more about that goal record, and he looks in good shape. I don't see him. He seems like he has more energy than Andy Rios. So he should definitely be out there a lot more. And another year.
Call me crazy. He's still the team's leading goal scorer.
Right.
Now,
no, 37. That's pretty accurate. Yeah.
So, if you're the team's leading goal scorer, that either tells you, that you still got gas in the tank, or the supporting cast is just really bad. So,
or both.
I'd love to, or both. Yeah. But if he can still play, I'd say give him one more season, at least a season off the bench, to, go out so he doesn't have to go out like this. Starting goalkeeper. JT Marcinkowski was the overwhelming favorite. 84% of fans want to see JT Marcinkowski. Are we in agreement with that one?
Yeah, it's a small sample size, but it's hard to not look at the numbers. When you're playing so badly, you have to analyze every detail. And just from the optics, Marcinkowski plays once, it's a 1-1 draw against Portland. Vega plays every other game, and the Quakes have lost 6 times at least, maybe 7, I don't know, by 4 or more goals. That's just depressing. So
yeah, they've lost 6 times, 4 or more goals, counting the Minnesota. They've surrendered 5 or more goals 5 times. So
right.
Yeah, it's been pretty brutal. And yeah, I'm not gonna. They had 2 wins in Orlando. They won 4-3, I believe it was. So they gave up a 3-goal performance in one of their wins, and they've had 2 shutouts. One was Chicago, who's not a very good team. I think it was Chicago.
Yes.
In Orlando, and the other was the 0-0
against Sounders.
Yeah. So.
Do you guys think that he's not putting JT out there so he doesn't kind of get these blows at him? I mean, I think at this point we're kind of looking at put Vega out there because we don't want to hurt JT's development because we don't want 7 goals to go in on him and him losing all his confidence.
Right, but unfortunately that's not a luxury anymore. I think you have to give the player who played well in his one opportunity at least another one. And if JT gets 5 or 6 past him, then maybe it's not just a Vega thing. It's a bigger team situation.
Right. Yeah. I think if JT gets more minutes, we'll see. And if the Quakes are surrendering less goals with JT in goal, then you have a clear choice there. But yeah, you're never going to know unless he gets more minutes out there. I also think JT, he's a U23 U.S. men's national team U23 member. It's not like he's a bad or a prospect that we're unsure of. He's a proven goalkeeper. He did well in Reno, so I don't understand why he's getting the bench over Daniel Vega at this point, especially when we've seen Vega giving up some pretty bad goals. I mean, he makes some great saves sometimes, but he does give up rebounds and things like that too. So I'd like to see JT just get a shot.
Yeah.
So we have.
Go ahead.
I was going to say player ratings. Osvaldo Alanis. So what I did, I kind of gave a numerical value for these guys. 3 is average, 3 and 4 is good, 4 and 5 is great. Osvaldo Alanis, Mexican center back, he got an average of about 3.7. I thought that was pretty fair. He's been a decent player, but he got injured, so we haven't been able to use him. Christian Espinoza is probably the fans think that he's our most valuable player. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, hands down. I mean, if we don't make a profit on him, then we did a horrible job.
Yeah. His evaluation in that poll, it was evenly split between being a good and a great player. So that tells you all you need to know about Christian Espinoza, that talent-wise, he's a player that Quakes desperately need.
Yeah, and he should be the player that we're building a team around at this point,
Yeah, I saw something from Wando the last game versus Colorado. He got livid at Espinoza when there was a rebound and Espinoza was just walking. So I hope that lights a fire under Espinoza, under his butt. I mean, but it was crazy. There was a rebound where Espinoza, if he was going towards the ball or at least being there, he could have at least put a shot on goal.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Wando's just that intense guy. He's intense the way he plays. He's intense with his teammates. You see it on the pitch.
Right.
The funny thing is, once that final whistle blows, he's like the nicest guy, and he's. I don't know what happens between the time the ref blows his whistle and the final whistle that he turns into like this animal. But it's one of the reasons why he's such a great player too.
Right, that winner mentality for sure.
Yeah. Judson got an average of a 3.6, somewhere between average and good.
Wow. It's pretty high.
Yeah, I was higher than I would have expected.
I was not expecting Judson to be rated so high. I consider him more of a bust at this point, especially since he's been on the pitch for all of the blowouts so far.
And that's pretty close to Alanis. So that's very close to Alanis. And Alanis was a starter at Chivas, right? I mean, I didn't think he was at some point.
Yeah, I believe so.
it's funny to see all these like kind of skews. I mean, I guess this is the narrative right here we're seeing. Utzon, it's not his fault. So I think it's weird. I think a lot of Quakes fans don't think it's the midfield's fault when it kind of is.
Yeah, I mean it's and we don't. I think we see a player like Jackson Ewell, who's a U.S. men's national team member, and we're like, well, what's wrong with our midfield? Well, we don't want to bring down the value of Jackson Ewell, right? Because we want to see him stay in that national kind of team talk. So I think if we're kind of steering the spotlight away from our midfield a little bit, or like not trying to highlight specific players or things like that, then certain players might not be their stock might not go down as much. So
right, but I think we can all be in agreement that he has regressed a bit in the system.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Flo was almost a 4. He got a 3.8 rating from fans. I think that was pretty fair. I think Flo, he's not the best center back, but he was never supposed to be a center back, but he's the best one on our team.
Yeah, it's kind of great.
Yeah,
definitely not a flop, right?
No. Goram Kasia got below a 3, so more fans rate him as bad than good. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. That is pretty interesting because, I mean, he's a presence in the box, and that's what we need. So I think Utzon gets a little bit of a pass while Goram should get a little more love, personally.
Yeah.
I think both deserve equal blame because I see them at fault for a lot of goals. It's a pretty close race, in my opinion. But Kasia is one of those players that he's going to see minutes because you need some big body in there to defend those crosses. The problem is not the initial crosses, I think, with Kasia. It's reacting to the second balls.
Yeah. That's a great point. Because Vega does give up some of those rebounds, and you need someone to almost play that sweeper role, right?
Right.
To get that ball out of there. And Kasia, he's not the most fleet of foot in getting those clearances out. Nick Lima got a lot of love. He averaged, I think, 3.9.
Oh wow!
3.85, so 3.9, really high. Marcos Lopez. So this is kind of interesting. Marcos Lopez got a 3.3 rating.
Wow. Okay.
From fans, yeah.
Homegrown bias, you guys think?
Yeah, Nick Lima, Castrovalli.
Yeah. Lima over Lopez, yeah.
I think we can, all three of us can say, though, that Marco Lopez is the better player, right?
I think it's a toss-up, yeah. I think Lima at left back, I would say I'd rather have Lopez back than Lima. But I think Lima, I think he's a better right back option. I think Tommy's more of a mover of the ball, not a defender of the ball.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Paul Marie got a low rating. He got a 2.8 rating, which is just below Goram Kasia. Paul Marie, French U16 team member.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, Paul Marie.
I don't see.
I think he's he's 25 years old, so he's not a prospect like. Not even Tanner Beeson's technically a prospect because he came out of college, so he's already like 22. But he's not Gilbert Fuentes. He's not Jacob Akanarije. He's 25 years old. He should be getting to his peak soon. And unfortunately, when he does see significant game time, he just shows us why he hadn't prior to that point. He's definitely a squad player.
Let's not forget, this was a Jesse Fiorinelli first-round draft pick, Paul Marie. Paul Marie wasn't even on the board for other teams, and Jesse Fiorinelli saw something in Paul Marie. He probably could have got him in like the second or third round, but he decided to use the first round draft pick on Paul Marie instead, and it's been kind of a draft bust.
I mean, who else? Do you guys know who else was in this draft? What year it was?
I can't remember. It's 2016.
I'll pull it up right now.
The 2016 draft. There has to be some other players.
I forget. Yeah.
It was the 2018 draft, actually.
Oh, it's 2018. Okay.
I didn't realize that old.
Yeah, so let's see. We got players like Joao Moutinho, not the Wolves one, obviously the LAFC one, the defender, Tristan Blackman, Chris Mueller, Mason Toy, Brandon
Chris Mueller was in that draft?
Yeah, Chris Mueller.
The Orlando player? Wow. He's really good. Yeah, I mean, he's turned that team around.
Ivan, did these guys go after Paul Marie?
These were all Oh, these were before. Sorry.
Oh, those are okay.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
So, there's not too many good ones that came after Paul Marie that I think of, at least in the first round. But the one big miss, and we'll get to this later in the poll, was in the second round, Danny Mazovsky.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Would you think he's better than Paul Murray? I guess.
Yeah.
LAFC, yeah.
I mean, when you score on the team that passed you by, yeah. I mean, and the fact that Ian Russell, rumor has it, I don't know for sure. This was the rumor that was, I think, posted on Reddit. I think they're referencing Black and Azul. That said Ian Russell was basically saying, yeah, this guy Danny Mazovsky is really good, and he tore up the USL last year, and the Quakes didn't want to re-sign him, and so he goes to LAFC, and it looks like he's got a great career ahead of him. Young striker that can move and keep up with MLS quality, and we let him slip through our fingers. So.
Right. I mean, wouldn't it be great to have a player like that right now?
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Andy Rios got a 2.1 rating. He was the lowest rated player.
Fair, right? I mean,
fair.
Man. Like, show effort at least.
Especially when you're being paid $250,000 to play this game. He has not produced nearly. He has not shown any type of return on that kind of money.
Yeah, his only goal in recent memory, it was that kind of fluky one he scored against Vancouver Whitecaps. Thank goodness he scored it, because obviously they needed it to mount that 4-3 comeback. But
that
was definitely a very fortuitous one, and it just sums up Andy Rios' career in a Quakes shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shea. Sorry.
No worries. I mean, it's crazy. He played at Vasco da Gama, so that's a huge club. And I mean, and he scored. He scored 15 times. Where is this guy? I mean, where is he at? He played at River too, as well, with 8 goals.
Is it a system? Just a system issue that he just can't fit into this man marking system that Almeida's trying to employ, and he just we're not playing to his strengths.
They brought him in. I mean, so I would hope.
I just don't think he knows what his strengths are anymore, because he's had so many bad games in a row. He just can't even sneeze in the direction of a goal.
I mean, he played the guys. Let's not kid. He played for Club America. I mean, this guy has some sort of talent.
He has pedigree. Yeah. He does have pedigree.
Yeah, but it's what have you done for me lately kind of sport. Joelinton scored a bunch of goals before he went to Newcastle, and now he looks like one of the worst players in the Premier League.
Yeah, it reminds me of Giovanni, the Quakes' first designated player.
Oh yeah.
They bring in Giovanni, and Giovanni doesn't do anything, and it's kind of like, weren't you supposed to help the team? And didn't really. His heart wasn't there.
Yeah, the only reason I remember Giovanni is because he was one of the few Quakes players that had the commentary say his name in FIFA 11.
Oh wow!
But I mean, like the guys at the Quakes After 90 podcast said, there has to be something that they saw in this guy, or he wasn't their first option. So maybe it was their third or fourth option to bring in, and they were like, okay, well, we're gonna bring in
5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. I don't know.
I wish I saw those preseason games where he was popping off goals like crazy. But I mean, did you see any of those goals? I mean, were there any highlights of them?
No, that's the thing, is they wouldn't tell. Like Matias Almeida would not let anybody see these preseason games or anything. So what happens in preseason is a mystery, a complete mystery. So we can't really judge what happened in preseason because everything was closed.
Right.
Another kind of frustrating thing for me as a fan is not being able to see preseason games because Matias doesn't want to give too much of his man marking system away. Well, I think it's been figured out at this point. So
right.
Lack of transparency.
Yeah. So why not be able to open up the doors and kind of let fans see what's happening in preseason?
Yeah.
Shea Salinas got a 4.
Okay.
Wow.
A little high. But...
This was before the blowout, the Portland blowout, by the way. So
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, stellar player. I mean, he's going to be a Quakes legend, but a 4 might be a little too high end.
Yeah. I love Shea Salinas as a Quakes player.
Yeah, he's about to set the assist leader.
Right.
The Quakes all-time assist leader. Yeah. I think it's Arturo Alvarez that I'm trying to remember the Quakes player that has the most assists right now.
I'll look that up.
Yeah.
But I believe it is. I think that was the quote that Passarelli said.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Anyway.
I'll find it and then I'll get back to you.
I feel like Joe Rogan just like, can you check that fact? Can you check that?
Right, yeah.
So it's Ronald Cerritos. He has
Cerritos?
47
Oh, wow.
fifths.
Okay,
Yeah.
wow.
Chase Salinas has 46.
Okay.
And then Chris Wondolowski is fourth with 39.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, well, the crazy thing is Cerritos was actually the team's leading goal scorer, too, before Wando took that over.
Oh,
so
wow.
Cerritos led the team in both goals and assists, had the record for both at one point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the goal scoring. I don't remember assists so much. So.
Yeah, 70 caps for El Salvador.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a great player. Tommy got a 3.6, which is a little bit above average. Vaco got a 3.3, which is about average.
Okay. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, I think maybe they should be swapped, but I feel like it's a mixed bag with both of them. We've seen some good stuff from Tom Thompson and Vaco this year, and then we've seen some games where they're just completely ineffective.
Yeah. Vaco, for me, he dribbles into trouble all the time. He's not afraid to shoot from 20, 25 yards out when he could be looking, to his right or to his left or something like that. He is reluctant to pass in general. He does, dribble the ball, but he doesn't get back on defense. I think Shea gets back on defense. Yeah. Shea's not afraid to pass. I think, those just kind of identifying some of the differences between Shea and Vaco.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
What this is going to sound really, really dumb, but why haven't we just tried him at striker? That sounds like a great striker.
At Vaco? I think because he's maybe – well, there have been like 5'5" strikers before.
Right, so, and don't even care about height, so why not just try it out there? I mean, he's going to cut and put him in the middle. I mean, maybe he'll get a left foot shot and a right foot shot. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Yeah. I mean, at this point in the season, you might as well just experiment and see what works and what doesn't. Okay, Daniel Vega, 2.1 average. Yeah, so he was just a little bit – Rios had a 2.12. Daniel Vega has a 2.15.
Mm-hmm.
So not a lot of fans happy with Daniel Vega.
Not much more to say at this point.
Yeah, I don't think he should have ever been starting in MLS, to be honest. So, and why Matias Almeida keeps going to Vega is a mystery to me. So, Wando got a 4.05, so basically a 4.1.
Okay. Wow. Who voted not for a 5 on Wando? That's
I don't know. Yeah.
On current form,
on his current form, not like as a a career, but how do you see him today as a player? So, and then Jackson Yule, 4.4. He was the second highest rated player.
Oh, okay. That's a homegrown bias for sure. Or at least wow, that one's high. That is really high. I've been really critical of Yule, but that's pretty high.
Yeah, it is pretty high. You do have he's a U.S. men's national team member, right? So, and Lima, right? He was a national team member. I think he's still trying to get on that national team. Maybe for future call-ups if he can get his act together. But I don't know. We'll see. But I think I'm sorry.
Was Yule the highest?
No, Espinoza was the highest. Yule was the second highest.
Right.
So Espinoza had a 4.47. Yule had a 4.39 overall rating. So,
I mean, I guess it's the high ceiling guys, right?
Yeah. A lot of potential with Yule.
Yeah, these are some of the interesting ones coming up. The mistakes or not mistakes, depending on the answers.
Yeah. So I limited the questions to kind of like recent signings and things like that. But I did want to address the Vaco because Vaco. The team kind of rises and falls with Vaco. Did Jesse Fiorelli make a mistake by trying to build the team around Vaco? Remember, Vaco's being paid $1.5 million a year. He's a big he's on the Quakes dole, so to speak. He's taken a lot of money from the team. 80% nearly said it was a mistake to try to build the team around Vaco.
Mm-hmm.
21,
Yeah, because if you build the team around a player, you expect the team to have some sort of resurgence. And that just hasn't happened. There's no doubt Vaco has talent, but maybe he's meant to be a supporting player rather than a star player.
This one's tough for me. I like Vaco a lot as a player. I think at points you do have to be selfish, and if this team is performing the way it is, I would be selfish too. I would just be trying to get some sort of goals in, no matter how I can, right?
Yeah, or I think I don't know. I think Vaco maybe has like that superstar mentality, right? Like,
right.
I'm getting paid the money. I don't need to do as much work as you guys or something like that. I don't know. So
it's but think about it. If you have Andy Rios not making any runs for you to at least see something to go ahead and pass the ball, I mean, I wouldn't pass the ball if he's just standing there. So I get it at some point, but then it just sucks because I think he takes a lot of the blame, and he's a goal scorer. He scored 26 goals for us, so I don't think it was a complete bust.
Vaco?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he was a bust, but he hasn't lived up to expectations.
No, he hasn't lived up to, especially the amount of money he's making. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, Caleb Porter. So I threw this one in because there was a kind of a coaching carousel that was going on. So you got Dom Kinnear, who's the coach, when Jesse Fiorinelli comes in. He fires Dom Kinnear mid-season. Keep in mind the Quakes are above the playoff line at this point. They're like number 6, I think. So he fires Dom Kinnear, appoints Chris Leach, not as the interim head coach, but as the acting head coach. So kind of an unusual move to appoint someone as the full-time head coach. Chris Leach doesn't do too well in the away games. The Dallas falls off. The Quakes kind of limp into the playoffs. They get beaten 5-1, I think it was, at Vancouver. Yep. And so bring in Mika Stare. Mika Stare comes in, and the next season, 2018, it's the wooden spoon fiasco, right?
Yeah.
And at this point, you let go of Mika Stare, and there is a MLS two-time Western Division championship coach, and a Supporters Shield winning coach, and an MLS championship winning coach waiting to be hired, waiting for a job.
Right.
And we don't pursue Caleb Porter. And I'm kind of like, that was a head scratcher for me. Like, why wouldn't we go after this guy, especially when Matias Almeida wasn't even on the radar?
Right.
Because we remember we had that whole, we're going to get a committee together, we're going to look at our different options and things like that. So I asked, was it a mistake? Now, here's the crazy thing. So I think it was a huge mistake not to try to approach Caleb Porter or hire him. Like, I don't even think he was on Jesse Fiorinelli's radar. But 55% of people think it was a good move by Jesse Fiorinelli not to hire Caleb Porter.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
My only rationale behind this is Caleb Porter was a Portland head coach, and Portland is, a rival of San Jose, so to speak. But I don't care what his record was with another team. If you can do work that same magic in San Jose, like, I don't care where you've been.
Yeah.
Come on over and make us into contenders. So.
Right.
You guys remember why Caleb Porter left Portland? Because I remember
he was let go.
Yeah, they were still making the playoffs. I mean, he was a two-time winning coach. There has to have been something behind closed doors. I don't know what anomaly that he didn't have a job anymore.
Yeah, no, he was. I think because they didn't win like 3 cups in a row or something like that, or because he lost a couple MLS championship cups. They decided, okay, well, we got the talent, but obviously this coach. It's almost like Jim Harbaugh, right? Jim Harbaugh gets you to the Super Bowl, but you're not winning it, so we're going to fire you. It's like, no, you don't get rid of a good coach just because he's not winning you the ultimate game. But I think that's what they did in Portland.
Wow.
And so, yeah, like.
Yeah.
I kind of understand. I think I was one of the people that voted for it was a bad move just because on Jesse Fiorinelli got the big fish. So the big fish.
Yeah, it turned out okay, so to speak, with Matias Almeida. And like he's definitely a bigger name, right? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No worries. And then I was thinking that created some sort of buzz. If we weren't in another wooden spoon season, we would have a lot more buzz, a lot more ticket sales, a lot more merchandise, a lot more national games. But it just failed due to the fact of the roster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Jesse Fiorinelli signing Andy Rios, mistake? 83% say yes, that was a huge mistake.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
17% saying it wasn't a mistake. Now, keep in mind, there's usually a few people that take these polls and just like, put in all the wrong answers on purpose. So I would say that.
Really?
Right?
The Quakes poll, there's trolls. I mean, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, the Quakes fan base has trolls. That's crazy. Yeah.
Those darn Galaxy fans sneaking into our subreddit.
Yeah. Carlos Fierro, was it a mistake signing Carlos Fierro? 71% said it was.
Wow. So that's like almost 3/4 of the whole fan or sample size.
Yeah.
Is just thrown away.
Yep.
Bro, we haven't even seen that much of him. That's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's why he's viewed so unfavorably, because he was expected to play a lot more often than he did, even though at the time you have Espinoza and Vaco on either wing, so that does limit opportunities, but still.
My whole thing about this signing is, where do you put him? I mean, there's only so many wingers we need, right? We have Espinoza on one side and Vaca on the other. I think if you're going to bring in a guy like Fierro, he should have a starting spot, but unfortunately, he doesn't.
Yeah, so that was kind of a question, like, okay, where does he fit in? You either got to get rid of Vaca or you got to get rid of Espinoza.
Right, are both.
And those are two guys that were already on the roster before you brought him in. So
that was an odd. I mean, I saw some people clamoring for him to be at like the central attacking midfielder. So that I was like, what? I've never seen that before. But I mean, we could. I mean, at this point, experiment, right? Why not? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you guys want? Like, what's your? All right, let's just do this. What's your guys' preferred 11? Like, Dan, what would you want to see out there?
Counting injured players or no?
Yes. Let's say in perfect world, what would you want to see?
So if I could have Alanis and Flo as our two center backs, I'd like to see Lima at the right back. I'd like to see Lopez at the left back. I think Tommy is a good option off the bench, but if we're looking for an attack, if we're going to have Fierro and Espinoza playing the wings, I think that'd be a good set. I'd like to see Yudson off the bench. I'd like to see Yule on as the number 6, single pivot as a number 10 player, middle attacking midfielder. Maybe Tommy.
Okay.
Because he's really good on the ball, believe it or not.
Yeah.
He can't shoot, but he can dribble. And he's really good at getting back on defense. So maybe having Tommy, and then up top, I just don't see Andy Rios on at this point. I'd rather see either a Danny Houston or Chris Wondolowski up there. So maybe pair them both up.
Yeah.
If you're going to play a single pivot with 3 midfielders and 2 forwards, Chris Wondolowski, Danny Houston pairing up top.
Yeah,
Houston is the 9 and Wando is the 11.
All right, and for my 11, I put Marcinkowski, Lima.
Oh yeah, and JT.
Yeah, so Marcinkowski, Lima, Alanis, Youngworth, Lopez, and then in midfield, you need to have some defensive midfield. So just hoping that we get to see the old Judson again, maybe Judson, and then along with that in midfield, Thompson and Yule, and then wings. Still, I want to see Espinoza and Cowell, and then Wondolowski as a striker.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess everybody here is off the Vaco train already, already writing him off. I think he still has something in him. I don't know why. I might be a Vaco.
He can come off the bench.
Yeah, okay. But I would like the same back 5 that you guys all have, the same. Mm-hmm. And I want to see Yudson and Yule in the middle. And then I want to see Vaco out there on the left, and then Espinoza on the right, and I want to see Husin and Cal up top. I think Cal could be a good striker. I don't know why. He's such a unique body type at 16 that I think it could work.
That kid is so fast. I mean, he's got wheels, he's got pace, and I think the sky's the limit because he's just going to keep getting faster.
Right.
So yeah, Cade Cowell. Yeah, at this point, why not put him on? But hold on to him. Don't let another team buy him from you.
And then Fierro at the 10. So I want to see some experimenting. I want to see something, right?
Right.
Especially our attack. I mean, our attack can definitely be experimented with.
Oh yeah.
All right, we got a few more of these questions. I know that this has been a good conversation, but we do have a few other topics to get to. So.
Yeah. So Danny Muzovsky, letting him slip through our fingers. 55% of fans think it was a mistake to let him slip through our fingers, which is interesting. I thought it'd be higher because he came so highly touted from Ian Russell in Reno, and he scored against us in LAFC. So interesting non-signing there that we could have had. Steven Betashore was on the market. We didn't go after Beta. 69% of fans thinking that was a mistake. Beta just signed with Colorado a couple weeks ago, or maybe last week. So
that means that a lot of the Quakes loyals that took your quiz have been here since 2012. If 70% of them have said that they want Betashore back, then they've definitely been here for a while.
In fact, I would say a lot of the loyals are the ones that were around the 2000 era, the 01-03 Cup, the 05 Supporter Shield, saw the team leave. The team comes back, and now they're trying their hardest to make sure that the team stays, right? So they don't want to see their team tank and potentially, get. I don't think the MLS would ever kick a team out of the league at this point. But if you're stinking up the league, like there's who's to say that MLS won't try to move your club somewhere else where they're going to get much more of a return on their dollar because the fans are.
Go ahead, Dan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying like it'd be reliving the nightmare all over again. Yeah. To have your team move. So.
It's crazy to think that no Bay Area team in a major sport, like a major sport in the United States, would be insane. And I think Fisher knows that. I think he knows that. They're not going to kick him out because he has the Bay Area in his pocket. So
yeah. Well, with Sacramento coming in, who knows? So
right.
Like, I think actually Sacramento will probably be good for San Jose. It's going to set up that rivalry, the NorCal rivalry.
Yeah.
So you call it the Derby if you want to call it the Derby. The I-80 Derby or whatever. I don't know. Although that's the Reno Sacramento rivalry right now. Yeah. Anyway, so do we want to talk any more about Beta or move on?
We're going to move on to the last few, I think.
Okay, yeah. Should Jesse Fiorinelli be fired? Now, keep in mind, this was before the 5-0 loss to Colorado. 61% believe Fiorinelli should be let go. 39% want him to stay. Matias Almeida should be fired. New coach should be appointed. 85% said nope. Keep Matias Almeida.
Okay.
And 15% said, we need to replace him.
Okay. Yeah, and some of the notable names I saw in the final question, if Almeida would be replaced, who should step in? The most common response by far was Ian Russell, the coach at Reno. And then a few other notable responses were Preki, the Sounders assistant, and Terezov, who is an LAFC assistant, John Harkes, who coaches Greenville Triumph in USL League One, and Rick Shantz, who coaches Phoenix Rising in the USL. Yeah,
so those were, I thought, domestic coaches. In fact, one guy, his response was, "These make it sound like you're Jesse Fiorinelli." And I'm like, dude, Jesse Fiorinelli doesn't know one thing about domestic coaches or domestic players. And I just named all domestic coaches. What are you talking about? So, like, he's like, if there's anything, Jesse Fiorinelli knows international, but he doesn't know, like, local. So the fact that I named all kind of, like, local coaches that were either in MLS or in USL was kind of funny. But yeah, I try to like just give a list of potential candidates that guys that might make the jump or should make the jump. Obviously, Ian Russell is he's probably the front runner with his. He was a former player. He's a coach in Reno. He knows the system. With Chris Leach, knows the crop of players that we have.
I do believe that whenever this Almeida experiment ends, we should give Ian Russell a shot, because then if no matter what coach ever looks at us, if you get a good results in USL, you can't go up to the big leagues. That's going to look poorly on our organization. I think we should definitely give him a shot once this partnership ends.
I think Ian Russell's going to get snatched up next year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Reno, he's made Reno, and they're an expansion team like 2 or 3 years ago. He's made them into like a legit, they're one of the powerhouses of USL. They're really good, and they score a ton of goals.
Right.
And he identifies players like Danny Muzovsky. Hey, this guy's a really good player, and so yeah, I think he knows how to scout talent. He knows what makes a good team. He knows how to implement a system, and he doesn't just have one system. He looks at his crop of players and says, okay, here's what we're going to do. And whereas I think Matias Almeida, he's really good at what he does, but he can only do the one thing that he knows how to do really well. Right. Whereas I think Ian Russell is a little bit more versatile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
finally, sorry.
No worries. I just had to say, what team do you think will snatch him up? I mean, we're at the bottom, and we're not looking for a coaching change.
One of the expansion teams.
Maybe. Yeah, that's right.
So I'm thinking maybe even like Sacramento, when they make the jump, they'll probably like, you know what, we played against this guy too many times. Let's bring him onto our team. So because we know what he can do for us. So because
that would be something that's like perfect, right?
Yeah. So that's why I think Ian Russell's probably going to get a little bit more. He's on people's radars. Let me just say that. So not just Quakes fans, but don't be surprised if he gets snatched up in the offseason by another team that's going to make the jump to MLS, or already has made the jump and they're just looking to retool, right?
All right.
Finally.
Go ahead. Sorry, I thought that was the last one. Sorry.
I was just going to go, I am optimistic about the team's future. This is the first time in any of the polls where more people said, no, I am not optimistic about the team's future. 56% said no.
That's particularly damning, because there's dark times before, but like there's still some reason for optimism. But right now, clearly the bad outweighs the good. So yeah,
I think with the players we have, you need a major overhaul of the players. You need to spend the money at this rate. MLS is becoming a very the salaries are going higher and higher, and we need an owner that's going to be able to match what other teams are offering players. And I don't think we have that owner. So I think fans are worried about attracting talent to San Jose. Right. I think there's a lot of worry, and deservedly so, with the future of the team right now.
Which it shouldn't be hard attracting talent, to be honest. I mean, we're having a hard time getting a sponsor. That's the craziest thing to me.
And this isn't the first time we've had to, be sponsorless, right? We had the Amway kits for a while, and then we were sponsorless. Even when we got the new logo and we're opening up a new stadium, we were struggling to find a kit sponsor. So it just goes to show, and I want to kind of call out Bay Area fans. Like, Bay Area fans are pretty fair weather. They love the Niners when they're winning. When the Niners are losing, they don't care so much. I'm not saying about Raiders fan base, win or lose, that they're an awesome fan base. But you look at the A's aren't winning. Not a lot of people were going to their games.
Right.
When the Sharks the Sharks have always been a pretty good team. They're always a playoff contender. So, you got a lot of fans going to the Sharks. If the Quakes aren't putting out a product that is competitive and winning, they're not going to see a lot of Bay Area fans being loyal to the sense that, they're going to be able to be a powerhouse club like some of these other emerging clubs are. I mean, you look at Atlanta and what they're doing with that fan base, right? The team has got to be willing to invest in the players and make them a championship caliber team, not just a hope we get into the playoffs. In fact, Jordan Stewart tweeted this.
Right.
I think it was yesterday, as a matter of fact. You can't have the playoffs be the goal, right? If playoffs are your goal and you come up short, you're just going to keep doing what the team has been doing. You got to have championships as your goal, and playoffs are just like expected at this point. And I don't know if the team is going to be, and once the front office and ownership are willing to splash the cash and make the club into that competitive, we're spending money and we're on the radar for these players that are coming over from, European leagues that are, like I gave the example of Chicharito, right? He signed with LA Galaxy.
Right.
And the Quakes were not even on the list of teams that could have signed him. And it's like, why aren't we ever willing to spend money on these players that are coming? They still have legs, they can still play, but yet the Quakes are not. We're not bringing in marquee big name players. We never have, and that's something that fans aren't going to get behind. That they're not going to get behind loss after loss and blowout loss after blowout loss. So.
Like the craziest thing to me is with the big, Latin population that we have in San Jose, or even the big, even Honda, the player, the Japanese player that went to Brazil.
Yeah.
We would have, I would have taken Honda with the Asian community in San Jose. That would have been cool too, right? We're not even doing anything to become anything in this league and in the international. I have brother-in-laws that live in Japan that don't even know about us, but they know about LA United. They know about LA Galaxy. They know about LAFC. And it's just like, man, we gotta definitely, you gotta make a splash with someone. I always say there's 18,000 people at the stadium, but then you look on Quakes Twitter, you look on Quakes Reddit, you look on Quakes Facebook. There's only about 1,000 of us, really.
There's not a lot, yeah, especially on social media. There's a lot of lurkers and things like that too, but I'd say the fan base has definitely dwindled.
Right.
So over the last 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to add to that sentiment of people not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, the ESPN power rankings aren't going to provide any sort of silver lining either. They officially plummeted to the bottom of the Major League Soccer power rankings, and this was following the Portland loss and before the Rapids loss. So if there is a way to put them lower than 26, they'll find a way. Not much more to say there other than you can have no complaints.
Yeah, and armchair analyst Matt Doyle gave the team an overall grade of F on MajorLeagueSoccer.com, an only team to get an F. So, yeah, right. When you're ranked, when you're getting an F on MLS Soccer and you're ranked 26 out of 26 on ESPN, it's not good.
Yeah, and I don't feel like any alarm bells are ringing, and it's just bizarre. Even without there being the threat of relegation, you should not want to be the worst team in the league because, with all due respect, because there are some great soccer players in this country, getting a number 1 MLS draft pick is not the same as getting Zion. It's not.
At the end of the day, I don't think they want it either, but Matias Almeida is just too stubborn. I'm kind of in the camp now. I know this is going to get your tinfoil hats on. I'm kind of in the camp that this might be something that he is doing, or at least the players are doing, to get something out of the owner. Because you don't lose this bad unless you have the job security. Jesse Fiorelli, but I don't know. There has to be a reason. They can't be this stubborn.
I don't know. If he is, that's either really genius or really ballsy to intentionally tank a team and play this badly just to try and get the team to invest more money in it. I'm not saying that's not the case. From what I can tell, I would say Matias Almeida, he is visibly frustrated. That he didn't want to do the press conference because he had a headache. That was a red flag for me. I think, he knows what he needs to have to succeed and he doesn't have it. And he's hinting at it in a lot of different ways. We don't have the players. We don't. And he's basically telling everybody, I can't do it. I can't do it with what I got. And unless that's going to change, and I don't think it's going to change, it is what it is. So
if any coach could do it, I think it would have to be a superstar head coach, and I think that's what we have.
Mm-hmm.
I think we got a coach, like I said, I think he does one thing really well. He specializes in the one thing he does really well, but if you don't have the ingredients to do that one thing, you're seeing the results as they materialize on the field. So that's why we're getting blowout loss after blowout loss.
Right.
He doesn't have the ingredients he needs to make that, that tasty. I mean, we've seen glimpses of it, and don't get me wrong, we saw it in 2019. So I don't think it's a player issue per se. Well, we did have a lot of player turnover, so not too much player turnover. He in terms of the starting lineup, he started taking players out of the lineup and inserting other players into the lineup, and I think that really affected him. Plus, I think the one-on-one scheme, it is kind of it was new and it worked.
Right.
But once teams figured it out, then I don't think it was as threatening or as teams could prepare for it, whereas they weren't preparing for it before, and so San Jose was able to be successful. So,
well, the funniest thing is it was working, but we didn't make the playoffs. So did it really work? I mean,
well, yeah, it was working until he started messing with the lineup, and it was working until we brought in Carlos Fierro and Andy Rios, and that's when it really started to slide in a really backwards way. So we tank the 2019 season, and 2020 just gets worse. So I remember the LAFC game last year when I think we lost 4-1 in LAFC. They were at Avaya. They had two sections of LAFC fans basically jumping back and forth, and I was like, oh my goodness, like this is crazy. And then it started, and like you could see there are cracks in the system, and it's kind of seeing like, yeah, this might not be a team that is going to be competitive, consistently competitive, if they have these kind of blowout losses. And then with the Minnesota loss early to start the season,
right?
What was it, 4-1 or something like that? Yeah, you just kind of knew, I think, this isn't going to be a good year. So
yeah. So we should get talking about the second game on our agenda, the September 23rd fixture in Commerce City, where Colorado Rapids hosted the San Jose Earthquakes. And let's just read off the lineups real quick. So Rapids started Yarbrough in goal, Rosenberry, Abubakar, Trusty, and Vines as their back line, Price and Acosta as their holding midfielders, Galvan, Bassett, and Lewis right behind Andre Shinyashiki. And Quakes, they started Vega, Thompson, Youngworth, Beeson, Lopez, Judson, Espinoza, Ewell, Cow, Fierro, and Rios. So just off the top of your head, you think there's not too much to split these two teams, right? So then this 5-0 loss to the Rapids, it immediately flushes several excuses down the drain for me, because this isn't the Cascadia teams, Portland and Seattle, where they have this background of being consistently going far in MLS playoffs or qualifying for playoffs, winning MLS Cups. This isn't the LA duo where they have international superstars buoying their team's success. This is the Rapids, who have a similar model and approach to player acquisition as the Quakes, but yet they came together. The goals came from, it could have been 6-0, but there was one goal that was ruled offside because
and I was surprised that goal got overturned, to be honest. I did not see conclusive evidence that the player was offside, but I'll take it. So
Kellen Acosta scored a finesse goal that was ruled offside due to Jack Price's positioning in the build-up. And it was also way after the fact. Like, I'm sorry, it should not take 5 minutes to make that decision. You got to stop play, make a decision in like 60 seconds, because that's enough time to see the replay 3 or 4 times and make a decision. And then Jack Price did make amends. His free kick met the head of Cole Bassett. Bassett is another interesting MLS prospect that I think he's going to develop into a good player. But the problem is no one was marking him. I get there was 2 people on Lalas Abubakar, who is a pretty big physical presence in his own might, but you don't leave Cole Bassett open when he has scored or assisted in 6 of his 9 appearances for the Rapids this season. Right. This is not doing your homework. And Almeida definitely made some poor substitutions in this game. At halftime, he took off Cowell. He put on Wando when it should have been Rios off, Wando on. And then when he's 2-0 down, because Jonathan Lewis, another exciting prospect, he scored shortly after halftime.
Yeah.
He subs on Paul Marie for Espinoza. When you're 2-0 down with about half hour to go, you have enough time to turn it around. That is defeatist mentality to put in Paul Marie. He might as well have been waving a white flag as he came on the pitch. And shortly after that, I feel like that was instant karma. They scored again 3-0. It's like the universe saying, okay, we see your weak-ass move. We're going to make you concede another goal anyway. And it was just downhill from there. It was a Tommy Thompson own goal followed by Mesquita, who essentially just made Vega look silly with his goal. And then the person who deserved a goal all night, Andre Shiki, who was the complete antithesis of Andy Rios. Andy Rios possessed all the attacking threat of a Care Bear, while Andre Shiniziki was a threat from start to finish. He finally got his goal, 5-0 Rapids. What are your thoughts besides what I just said?
Yeah, I mean, let's go rapid fire here. No pun intended. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, jeez.
Rapid fire.
But yeah, I mean I think our season summed up by that Cade Cowell pass to Andy Rios. No effort at all. So,
when the cross, right, where Cade Cowell works all the way to the baseline, crosses it into the box, and you have a jogging Andy Rios. If Andy Rios was actually sprinting, he would have got to that ball and put it, had a quality shot. But because he was jogging, I know exactly that play. And that's our season. That's a great metaphor right there.
Yeah, and you see the effort in these young players like Calvillo, Cowell, Akanyarije, Beeson. They play like they care. They play like they give a crap. Rios does not play like he gives a crap. And some of these other stats, like there are a few silver linings in the stats against Portland, but no such thing here. 16-6 shot advantage for Colorado. They had 8 shots on target, another clinical performance, scoring 5 of them. Well, maybe 4 because I don't think the own goal counts as a shot on target. But it was 8-4 shots on target for Colorado.
It would have been because if Tommy didn't get it, there was a Colorado player right there that was going to put it in anyway. So
okay, so that would have been
just unfortunate on Tommy
goal.
Thompson. Yeah.
Yeah. 60% possession for Rapids. Again, like they don't have a Nicolas Ladero or a Nani that is eating up the possession. This is freaking Kellen Acosta pulling the strings. 89% passing accuracy for Rapids, so they barely put a foot wrong. 79% for Quakes, even though that's a C+ in school, that felt like 50% pass accuracy at times. 534 total passes compared to 363 by the Quakes, and duels won 47-28 Rapids. So it was complete domination there. And with all the Rapids deserve all the credit in the world for this. They are in the middle of the playoff hunt for the Western Conference. They built their squad up very well, and they are playing like they don't fear anyone. They beat LA Galaxy the game before this,
right?
And rightfully so, that they are playing without fear. And unfortunately, it's the complete opposite for the Quakes.
So this is really interesting. I'm gonna give you the age of not Tyler Yarbrough, but everyone else on the Rapids team. So Andre Shinishiki, 23.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan Lewis, 23. Cole Bassett, 19.
Wow.
Brian Galvin, 19. Kellen Acosta, 25, so a little bit, mid-20s. Jack Price, 27. Sam Vines, 21. Austin Trusty, 22. Lalas Abubakar, 25.
Wow.
And Keegan Rosenberry, 26. So none of these guys are over 30. They're all teenagers or early to mid-20s, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they bossed the Quakes. I mean, they just – it was embarrassing to have, like, so many young players boss it to veterans, right? Like,
yeah. I guess at that point, they are coachable, though, because they're young. So maybe that's our problem. We need to get younger. And I'm at a point where, like, hey, let's just bring up all the young guys. I mean, let's just play a team of young guys. Let's see it.
Well, at this point, I mean, what's wrong with our Reno? How many guys can we bring up from Reno? Because
Right.
Reno's playing really well, right? And
Just send
kinda,
Andy Rios down. Let's do it.
yeah. But I would love to have Danny Musovsky at this point over Andy Rios, right? A young, hungry guy that wants to go out and prove himself
Right.
versus Andy Rios. I think maybe Andy Rios is like, man, I'm in MLS now. Maybe that gave him a confidence hit, you
Right.
know, like he just doesn't. Am I really that bad that I have to play in MLS now or something like that? I don't know. I'm just trying to.
Yeah, so the players I see on the current Reno roster that are still on contract with San Jose Earthquakes are Siad Haji and Gilbert Fuentes. Those are the main ones. JT Marcinkowski and Marcos Lopez have made appearances for Reno this season, but they are currently with San Jose Earthquakes. A bit sad, though, that Kevin Partita is a full-on transfer, so it's not like we can just say, hey, Kevin, come back. He's on Reno's books, and we'll hopefully get a chance to talk to him at some point.
Yeah, well, he's going to come on the pod, so that should be a nice little interview.
Nice,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so right now, I think the only thing I can say, and I think I said this on Twitter, was since there was clearly no defending in that game, I hope someone on the Quakes staff was taking notes, because the Rapids are becoming what we thought the Quakes could become. They are doing things right, and they are not spending a lot of money on players. They're developing their talent, and they have an identity, and their identity is their youth and their fearlessness. And Quakes can't even cling on to their system as an identity, because if a system doesn't even work, it doesn't really count, right?
Yeah.
Well, you know what's crazy is they actually got a guy, though. They got Tim Howard. I mean, they got a star, and then now they have Yarborough, which is in U.S. men's national team world, a star as well.
From like 2015, but still, like he does have experience in the U.S. men's national team.
And Clint Irwin is their backup too,
right.
Goalkeeper.
Yeah, he's a well-traveled goalkeeper. He was on Toronto and a few other clubs. So,
backup, though.
Yeah, one of the best backups in the league, I think. Fan questions time. What I'll do is I'll read off the questions, and then we'll alternate again between Dan and Favi to try to answer some of them.
Awesome.
Before we get started, though, you did have an interesting question on Twitter, Favi, that I did want to address to kick things off. So
yeah, let's
Quakes
answer it.
Yeah, so the Quakes average break has been 3.25 days. And before I saw this, I figured it was roughly the same for everybody. But as it turns out, it's been 5 for Galaxy, 4.5 for LAFC, 4.57 for Rapids, 5.16 for Sounders, and 4.42 for Timbers. And it may not seem like a huge amount of difference, but especially since none of these numbers for the other teams are even 3 point something, that's a significant difference. It does add up with the amount of games I've played. So,
and this is the average of games or of days between games. So
right,
for everybody listening, this is an average of all the days that they had between all the games that they've played.
God damn, I'm slipping if I didn't mention that first. My apologies. But does Almeida have a valid excuse? What do you guys think?
Dan, what do you think? So basically, this is the average of all the days between each game, and the Quakes average was 3.25, and then the closest average to it was the Timbers at 4.42 days in between games.
So my first response is, show me so I'm looking at San Jose, I'm looking at Portland, and their schedules. San Jose did have a lot of back-to-back games. September 5th, September 10th, so that was a 5-day break. September 13th, 3-day. September 16th, 3-day. September 19th, 3-day. And then September 23rd, 4-day. Portland, September 23rd, September 19th, 4-day. September 16th, 3-day. September 13th, 3-day. But then, they had a big break with September 6th. So I think there is validity there. I don't know if it's the reason why the Quakes are performing so poorly, but I do think there is beef to be, the Quakes. Yeah, Almeida does have. It sounds like he does have like, if we're playing a condensed season, give us the same rest that other teams are entitled to.
So
right.
It happened because of we went far in the MLS's back tournament, as well as we didn't play our first game back. So
yeah,
we had a very long stretch before we started playing games, and just because everybody played a game before us and then another game before us because we didn't actually play our first game, it made it super condensed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only 5-day break they've had since this slate of games has begun was between the 1-1 draw against the Rapids at home and the clobbering at CenturyLink Field. So it has been a bit difficult, but there's no way that this scheduling situation, you can still complain about it and you can still talk to MLS, and that should be something that should be looked at, but you can't. You put it all about the large losses on that situation. And I'm not saying that Almeida is, but it is a legitimate gripe.
Yeah, the Quakes they're about to have a week off. I'm looking at their schedule now. So Sunday, September 27th, Saturday, October 3rd. That's a full week, and then they have another Wednesday through Sunday 5-day break. So if you're looking for resting your players, then take advantage of the time that's coming up.
Yeah. Right, we'll go into the schedule. That'll be the last thing we cover after we finish this podcast. But that's a good point that they'll finally get that rest, and you got what you needed to make the most of it. Spend a few good days training, but also heal as much as you need to, or as much as possible.
At least release.
I think that.
Go ahead, Dan.
I was going to say that stat between like average rest days between games or something like that. I mean, now that I'm thinking of it, that's a huge stat, because if you're playing tired, you're more prone to injury.
Right.
And especially when you're going to Colorado, mile high elevation, you've played back-to-back a game every 3 days, and now you got to go to Colorado and expected to, do well in Colorado. Now, keep in mind, Colorado, they had a 4-day wait between their game, LA Galaxy, and then playing at home. And then they had three, I'm looking at their schedule. So 4 days, 3 days, 3 days, 4 days. So they were even having a little bit more rest between games. So I think that's, whoever brought that up on Twitter, that's a really good point. And so thank you for bringing that up, because
So I actually got it from the Quakes Discord. So I saw it and I was like, wow, that's a really good stat. Shout out to the Discord for the Quakes. And I think it's huge because we don't even play a normal system. We play a man marking system where they're gassed all the time.
Yeah.
So it's something on top of that. I mean, if we played a normal 4-4-2, then okay, there's that excuse is less. But these guys on defense are completely gassed, and it's and there's not that many interchangeable guys in the back line anyway.
Yeah. So Kevin
we're
Portillo,
down to our last two.
Yeah. Sorry, Daniel, you can finish your thought and then I'll ask the question.
No, I'm saying we're down to our last two center backs, I think, right?
Are Kashia and Alanis both injured?
I believe so.
Yeah.
We could play Akin Juric. I think he's a young player, but Flo,
And then Judson, I think he played one of the games as center back, but I can't really consider that a legitimate option.
Yeah.
So Kevin Portillo on Twitter asks, has Matias Almeida given up on this team? I've never seen him look as tired and lethargic. Favi, since you're the one with the tinfoil hat on, why don't you give that one a crack?
I think let me put on my tinfoil hat. I don't think he has. I think I want to see some sort of rumor come out. I mean, that we're looking at some sort of guys. If I was the Quakes PR team or Jesse Piranelli, I would leak something right now, because if we have nothing to look forward to, of course we're going to think that they gave up on the team as well. So I understand where this question is coming from, but I don't think he's given up on the team. And he looks so tired and lethargic because, again, this is a battle between him and the owner. I even think Jesse Farinelli's in on this. I think it's a battle between these two guys versus the owner. They want to open that pocketbook. But again, I would release some sort of rumor saying that we can't afford something and then get the outcry of the fans, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he's given up on the team. I do think he's given up on the ownership, though, or at least he's calling them out, saying, hey, you guys need to be willing to invest in a quality team if you want to have a quality team. You can't just, like, hire a coach and, expect him to make magic with the players that are pretty young and inexperienced that you've given me. At the same time, he also made it sound like, oh, well, we have the roster to compete. We should be able to. But I think now he's kind of realizing, that might have been a premature assessment. And now that I see kind of what the future holds, we really need ownership to open up their checkbook. So I don't think he's given up on the team. I don't think he's given up on the project. But I do think if ownership is unwilling to open up their checkbooks and invest, I do see him leaving. Not because he doesn't think he can do it with what he has, but I don't think he sees the commitment from ownership that he would like to see. And so why should he waste his time when there are other opportunities available?
So Dom and Phil brought up a good point on Quakes after 90. Do you think that another MLS team would go after him if he decides to leave? Imagine Atlanta United getting Matias Almeida.
Yeah, this goes with another question we had from Nestor at Valizi. He asked, could Matias Almeida be successful if he left to another MLS team and tried to play the same system? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, in Atlanta, he would demolish. I think with that type of pocketbook and any Argentinian he would want, he would. What do you think, Dan?
I think obviously he would be successful. I think he's a competent coach. Sometimes his personnel decisions kind of make me scratch my head with Vega and Rios, but I don't see him being a failure with other teams, especially if there's a project like with one of these expansion teams that are coming out, like Austin or something like that. They already have their coach, but if there's a project out there, I think he would jump right into it, and I think he would be successful with a different team. I think there's more to the story with San Jose than we can see, but what goes on behind closed doors. And I think his visible frustrations are kind of showing that there's something going on behind the closed doors that he's not happy with.
Yeah, I have to believe that he can do better at any other MLS club because every other MLS club has made more transfers. Like even Nashville is still linked with more players, I feel, than the San Jose Earthquakes. And I want to quickly address Devin at DevBo88. He asked about breaking down Almeida's comments regarding Fisher, which we covered. Almeida mentioned there's no magic wand, and so that came across as possibly a final warning or at least a warning of any kind toward ownership. And is there anything that's left to be said about this question? Why does Andy Rios not fit in with the San Jose Earthquakes?
Yeah, I think it's effort. I think he, like Dan said earlier in the podcast, he might have this might have this ego where he's like, man, I'm playing in MLS. I'm not going to give it my all. And I think it's that completely. I think if he's just running to score a goal, we think differently of him. But I mean, it's evident on his body language. It's evident on his game. I mean, his gameplay. That's it. He just doesn't he's not putting enough effort.
Yeah, he got a big paycheck, and I think he's just I think his confidence really went down. And when you're a player and you don't have confidence, that's really going to affect how well you play, your approach to the game, your approach to practices, and I think these kind of lopsided defeats in which he is not producing any offense is not helping the situation. It's probably making the situation worse for him. So I think that's it's a problem that's being compounded, if that makes sense. Why isn't he fitting in with the team? Because he had a bad start, and that's causing him to, and I'm not saying this is all the only reason why he's not fitting in with the team. But I think, he has a confidence issue, and it's cascading in a really bad way for him.
Right.
Okay. William at BP_Schneider asks, are we really buying into the Matthias development approach, saying that he's focusing on youth? Matthias, yes. And also, Dom mentioned that other teams have adjusted to the man marking system, but why haven't the Quakes responded to those adjustments? And I feel like for the second question, we got to chalk it up to Almeida is being stubborn, I guess. He wants to play this way come hell or high water. But as for the first one, I think we can expand on that a bit more. So do you think that developing youth has ever been one of the priorities for Almeida, now that out of necessity he's starting to play them more, perhaps?
Yeah, I think it's out of necessity. I don't think he was doing that at Chivas, right, Ivan? He wasn't really playing the youth?
I don't remember him playing the youth. I feel like the youth they have now, like JJ Macias and Alexis Vega, they weren't part of the team or around when he was head coach, but I could be wrong. My Chivas history is a little more foggy than my San Jose Earthquakes history, so.
Yeah. Dan, what do you think?
From my memory, I want to say he overhauled teams, and I think Joel Soria had it on Twitter when he kind of shows how there's a big turnover when he comes into these clubs, right? And kind of the overhaul that he does. So I think we need to look at what Joel Soria highlighted on Twitter with his, he comes in and out with the old, in with the new, and I don't think it's new youth. I think it's players that he's bringing in from other teams, if that makes sense.
Right, that makes sense.
Just going back to like the presser question, I find it very odd that Matthias has a hard time handling people being critical about him, which is odd because he played in, Liga MX, right? So that media cycle is way worse. So when he was talking about es mala leche, it's like, it's bad. It's bad. Spoiled milk. You can't really talk bad about me. I thought that was really odd. I thought he definitely had a boiling point or something.
Again, this is a what have you done for me lately sort of sport. San Jose Earthquakes fans are well aware of his resume from before the Quakes, but it's one of those things like if you're not going to provide that level of play consistently at this club, it's like, you gave your previous club's present, your Santa Claus, and we got coal. Like, come on.
Right.
Yep. Great analogy.
Yeah, so at Matt3Leo asks, will the presence of Oakland Roots put pressure on San Jose Earthquakes to improve their product on the field? This was similar to what you brought up, Dan, about the Rise of Sacramento Republic. They'll be joining the MLS, I believe, 2023. And so, while Sacramento is pretty close to the Bay Area, it's considered a different media market.
Yeah.
Not a lot of overlap between Kings and Warriors fans, for example. However, Oakland is the exact same media market. San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose, they do have some conflicting teams in other sports, and even though Oakland Roots will be in USL, I feel like if there's a better product in USL and it's cheaper as well, people are going to be more inclined to go to Oakland Roots games than San Jose Earthquakes games. That's something that they do have to be wary of.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna say I hope so.
Yeah.
You hope it affects the San Jose Earthquakes?
Yeah, I hope that Oakland tries to tap into the SF market a little more as well, because San Jose has no marketing above San Jose at all. So I know I saw a couple of billboards for Stanford Stadium, maybe about 3 years back up in the Peninsula area where I live. But I hope Oakland Roots puts a little pressure. But I think the Quakes are smarter than that. I think they're going to ask them to be their affiliate before they can actually, make it.
Yeah, they used to have more of an outreach in other parts of the Bay Area because my cousin, he went to De La Salle High School, which is a high school that has produced players such as Chris Wondolowski, JT Marcinkowski, and Stephen Fry. He was with the Quakes Academy for a few years, and De La Salle is over in Concord, so there was a bit of a presence, and San Jose Earthquakes are still looking around different areas. Like Fuentes is from Tracy, Jacob Akanurije is from Pleasanton, so it definitely there. I know that in other sports there is the 75-mile rule, where like that's the limit for where you can advertise, and if you are run into another media market, then it's split the difference. And by that logic, San Jose should be seeing advertisements from Dixon down to Monterey. Like there's my math might be a little off, but that's how it should be if marketing is doing what they're doing. And to be fair, there are some people in the media department that are doing a good job. And in the marketing, I've had one of the ticket reps call me a few weeks ago just to check in on all the recent attendees, which is really great. But overall, there's some greater issues there.
Was it Audi?
Was it Audi? I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, she does a great job.
Yeah, it was a guy. Unfortunately, his name escapes me, but I appreciate you. We got two more questions. Trent at Go Effing Jags with one of my favorite Twitter names. With Marcos Lopez getting
Gardner
called up
Minshew, shout out.
Yeah. With Gardner Minshew, with Marcos Lopez getting called up to the Peru national team for World Cup qualifiers, how will his absence affect our back line for the 2-3 games he's out? And unfortunately, you can't understate how good a player Marcos Lopez is, but with him in the lineup, the Quakes have been losing a lot. Without him, they will lose a lot. I don't think that it'll go from 5-0 to 8-0. Hopefully not. Now I've said it, like I might have jinxed us, but I'd rather him play World Cup qualifiers than get blown out multiple times at this rate.
Yeah, I think we're going to go back to saying Tommy and Nick Lima, and against LAFC, we're going to see it's LAFC coming up, right?
Yeah, so
it's LAFC away.
LAFC on Sunday, yeah.
And Whitecaps at home. So LAFC away, we're going to see my favorite player, Diego Rossi, just blow away Tommy Thompson. And then Galaxy home, we're going to see Pavon versus Tommy Thompson again, right? So
yeah,
it's going to – I mean, unless Paul Marie is going to be put in there, we're going to get beat in those games. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it's LAFC, then Galaxy, then Whitecaps. Again, we'll recap the schedule at the end of this podcast. And then lastly, we got Quakes74 off Discord. He wanted to ask something that had a little more to do with our Andres Imperial interview. How often do players often see Fisher? I know he was at one of the games recently, and I believe Andres said that in his 2 seasons, he only saw him 3 times.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, it's very hands-off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and granted, we understand that Andres Imperial hasn't been around the club as long as Tommy Thompson, but still, to only see the owner that little, it doesn't speak highly of his commitment to this team. Any thoughts on that, Dan?
Yeah, I think with Fisher, it's more of an investment than a passion of his, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so when he starts to see that his investment is potentially going bad with bad results and things like that, then he's going to show up and be like, hey, what's going on? Otherwise, he's pretty hands off. And I'm thankful that we have a team in San Jose, obviously.
Right.
So I don't want to disparage, I'm glad that we have a team, and I hope we can keep our team. I just doesn't do well for his reputation, if that makes sense.
I thought Jordan Stewart's tweet really showed a lot. I think if a former player is gonna out you that bad, I think it says a lot.
Right. So yeah, just keep on waiting. waiting on the world to change. But until then, let's take a look at some of these standings. Looking at the Eastern Conference, Columbus is on top with 30. Orlando, Union, and Toronto are the next three with 25
Caleb Porter
each.
coached Columbus, by the way. I mean, people hate it, but I'm like, I think he would have done. I think Caleb Porter would have been an awesome coach here.
Dan,
He goes to Columbus, and they're just kicking ass.
Dan,
Hey, any coach that has a run-in with Jose Mourinho has a little bit of my respect. So
Yeah.
Dan, would you have bought a Nagby jersey for the Quakes?
No, nothing. No, I mean, if he's bringing in Darlington Nagby from and he's going to be a player for San Jose.
Of course.
I'll buy this. But I'm not. I'll buy any San Jose player, even if they were like part of Tottenham or something like that. So because I'm an Arsenal fan too. So, but I'm never going to buy another player's jersey from another team. That's just blasphemous.
If Caleb came here, Nagby would have been on the team for sure. And
I would have welcomed to San Jose. Whatever you did in your past, that's in the past. Let's look to the future now.
And then after Toronto in fourth with 25 points, there's a bit of a drop-off, and it gets a little more bunched. You have New England Revolution, 18 points, NYC, 17 points, New York Red Bulls, also 17 points. The last three playoff spots, since 10 make it from the East out of 14 and 8 out of 12 make it from the West. You have Montreal, Nashville, and Atlanta United holding on the skin of their teeth through that last playoff spot. And then right behind them, breathing down their necks, Cincinnati, 13. Chicago Fire, 12. Somehow Chicago Fire is in this playoff race. And then the improving Inter Miami at 11. Yeah, and DC United at the bottom with 11 points. No one is done and dusted yet in the Eastern Conference, with DC United only 3 points off. Any other surprises or things of note looking at those standings?
Orlando is a huge turnaround team. I'm surprised, but they did really well in the MLS Back tournament. Maybe it was an advantage to have the MLS Back tournament in their backyard, right? So, because they were able to take the momentum of that tournament and just parlay it into a really good season. So I think that's a big surprise. So.
Yeah, I can't wait for Inter Miami to field Higuain. I don't think they're going to be down there for long.
Yeah, with Higuain and Blaise Matuidi there now, they should be able to make the playoffs. I think if you're Nashville or Atlanta United, you better be very nervous. And looking at Western Conference, it's very tight at the top. You have Sounders with 21 points in first, but Timbers also at 21 points in second, just behind on goal difference. Sporting Kansas City at third with 20. FC Dallas, a team maybe we dodged a bullet that we didn't play against them in MLS's back. They're in fourth with 19. Colorado Rapids, buoyed with that huge win, are now in fifth with also 19 points. Somehow their goal difference isn't better than FC Dallas. I guess, they'll have to beat someone else up by 5 goals. Sixth is LAFC with 18 points. Minnesota also 18th. That last playoff spot is occupied by Real Salt Lake. With 17 points, they just beat LA Galaxy. So that was a good result for them. Under the playoff line, we have the Whitecaps at 15. The Galaxy at 15 as well. That was a big loss to them against Real Salt Lake. Dynamo is also at 15. So a lot of these teams are close together. But Quakes, they are 6 points off Real Salt Lake in the playoffs, 11 points. And their negative 21 goal difference is the worst goal difference in MLS. No one's surprised. The second worst is the Vancouver Whitecaps at negative 13, which was not helped at all by their 6-0 loss to LAFC. Yeah. They were down 5-0 at halftime in that game. Any thoughts on the Western Conference standings?
Yeah, the Galaxy being down there is kind of a shocker. Chicharito's on the hot seat a little bit. Bringing that type of player to score goals, and he hasn't scored a goal in a run of play. So it's I guess it could be worse for the Quakes, right? We could spend money on a guy and not score goals.
Right, yeah. Well, I want to say Chicharito was also injured coming into the season. Is that right? Or am I
crazy? He was hurt. He didn't play much in the MLS's Back tournament. It took a little bit of time after the MLS's Back tournament as well, because I remember both him and Jonathan Dos Santos came off the bench in that second game where they drew.
Yeah.
I would expect LAFC to be higher on that list, especially with Diego Rossi. Like, just he's such a good player. Minnesota's kind of a surprise to me. I thought, they played really well in the MLS's back tournament. They only lost to Columbus, right? Who's like the best team in MLS. So
penalties, I think.
Yeah. So I think Minnesota is probably going to creep up. Colorado, they got that chip on their shoulder at this point. They're a rising star. Yeah. So.
Go ahead.
Those are the surprises for me, to see Minnesota LAFC so low and to see Colorado moving up the table. I wouldn't be surprised to see them move higher.
Yeah, it is only a 4-point gap between the Sounders in first and Real Salt Lake in eighth. So these standings, especially in the Western Conference, could change drastically when we do our next podcast. And so looking a little ahead to the playoffs, if it remains that tight, if you have that 1 versus 8 seed matchup, it doesn't look as daunting for the 8 seed if it's that close. So that could be a very interesting game.
Yeah.
You could be at 65%, whatever, be in the worst 2/3 and still make it into the playoffs. So if there's ever a season in which San Jose could make the playoffs and still be terrible, it would be this season, because the bottom, the top third and the middle third all make it. It's just that the bottom third is the one that doesn't make it. And and Matias Almeida also, he said there was a question, why are you playing so many youth? And he kind of said, well, I want to see what I'm working with for next year. And it's like, well, why aren't you worried about this year? Why aren't we focusing on this year? So I don't know if he's maybe packing in the season in a little in subtle ways. So just food for thought.
Yep.
Because I see San Jose at the bottom, and I'm just like, man, this is not good. And at the bottom by a large margin.
Yeah, missed opportunities. We'll go over the remaining schedule now, as well as our upcoming podcast schedule in terms of what games we'll cover. We'll also have a few other special interviews and other podcasts of that nature. But for the games, at least, up next we have LAFC away on Sunday, which will be the only game that we'll cover on our October 2nd podcast, at least tentatively with our Friday recording schedule. And then after that, we have the Galaxy home and Whitecaps at home. We'll cover those two on October 9th.
We have to win Vancouver. Vancouver is a must win.
And then we go on the road the following week, Timbers away and Galaxy away, which we'll cover on October 16th.
San Jose has never won in Portland in MLS era.
Wow. And obviously Timber is still kind of a newish team in the grand scheme of things, but still, they've been in the league now for 10 years. That is a jarring stat. October 18th, Sounders at home, which will be our sole game for the October 23rd podcast. And then we have an interesting game after that. We play the Whitecaps again, not in Vancouver for obvious COVID-related reasons, but it will be an away game for the Quakes, but it will be held in Providence Park, so it will be a neutral venue. And October 28th, Real Salt Lake at home, which will be covered on our October 30th podcast. And our last two games, November 1st, LAFC at home, and November 8th, Sounders away. So those will just be one game podcast for each of those last two games. I don't know what we did to deserve playing LAFC so many times other than obvious geographic reasons. That's just,
daunting.
It would have been nice to mix in a Sporting Kansas City here or there, like to not be LAFC, but it is what it is, or Houston Dynamo. But
a little Nashville would have been cool.
Yeah, unfortunately, Nashville is too east. So
right. But again, this is a very scary schedule, but more of the same. These guys are going to know our system. They're going to know our players. And if we don't do anything to change it, it's going to be more of the same because we're going to lose one of our best defensive players, at least for the first three games. More of the same again. But that, I guess, concludes it, right? So
yep.
A little bit of a longer podcast. So if you made it this far, we want to thank you for listening. Dan, thank you for your time for coming on. Again, his podcast is Goonie Time Radio, and then he runs a blog. So definitely check out his blog, pictures, Quakes content. He does it.
Links to all the podcasts if you want to listen to other podcasts and things like that. So yeah, quakesfan.com.
Yep. And then, guys, again, thank you for all your love and support. We appreciate all the questions. We do have a Patreon, so please, if you want to support us, putting this together, we would greatly appreciate it. Pay for Zoom at least, So me and Ivan are in the middle of a transition, so we would still like to go through with this. But Ivan, any closing thoughts?
I think that looking ahead to we have 7 podcasts in the future worth of the remaining games Quakes have on their schedule. I can only hope that we can give you something different to tell you during that time.
Right.
Even if it is a lot more draws than wins, I would take that at this point. But ultimately, through these last few days and talking to Dan, talking to Dom, talking to Andres, and interacting with fans all over social media as well, there's still that sense of community and commitment to this team that is the reason why we still do these podcasts, and the reason why I still look forward to these podcasts. I look forward to a podcast where in the 2 games we covered, we lost a combined score of 11-1, because there's still so much to talk about, and it's our way to reach out to the community. So we thank you for your support.
And Dan, any closing thoughts for you?
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys for keeping the podcast going. And, it's a tough season, obviously, but I think the more we have fans promoting the team, to show the team that we're still there for them. We're not going to leave them. We're not going to stop cheering for them.
Right.
My site was hacked last year, and I'm like, the team, I'm gonna bring back my blog because I want to support the team, and this is one of the ways that I can do it. Now, I want to encourage fans. There are going to be tough times like this, and it's just part of supporting a sports club. It doesn't mean that this is going to be the way it is forever,
Right.
So hang tight. We might be in lean times right now, but better times are always going to be on the horizon. So keep supporting the team, keep coming out, supporting the podcasts, supporting the work that's being done at Quakes Epicenter, Black and Azul, all the other media things that we're doing to try and get the team going. So we thank you, fans, for doing that for us.
Yeah, and we just want to reiterate that if any of you other Quakes media people are listening to this, we appreciate you supporting us, and you are all doing a terrific job as well. Part of the reason why I wanted to do this podcast in the first place is because of your work and contributions. So we're happy to be a part of this family.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening, and go Quakes.
Go Quakes.
And go Quakes. And one last thing, you can follow Ivan. You can follow myself at Ivan Ornelas2 on Twitter. You can follow Dan at QuakesFan on Twitter. And you can follow Favian at The Only Quaker also on Twitter. So now have a good night.
That was a little premature. We have a YouTube as well. So if you can't listen to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or anything, YouTube is there. All right. Now I'm going to say it for good. Go Quakes.
Okay. Go Quakes.
Cheers. Go Quakes.